The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you wishing to construct a tower does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king, advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord.
Anyone who doesn't hate their own life or renounce all their possessions cannot be my disciple. We did not make that saying up on our ministry team retreat last week. This is not something the deacon made up and read all on his own today. This is the words of Jesus, the one we believe was with God before all time, the one we say, God from God, light from light, true God from true God. That guy, he said it. And that's his call to us. He means it. He wants us to, compared to everything else, just abandon that and follow him, because what he's trying to achieve is that remarkable, is that new, is that unlike anything ever seen before. Well, kind of like something seen before, but still altogether new. When I say kind of like something seen before, I'm talking about creation. So let's start today at the beginning. Let's start in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth, right? And he creates humanity as well. And you know what he does when he's all done? He kind of leans back and he contemplates. Can you imagine that? God contemplating? I can't quite do it yet, but Jesus did pray, so I can go there. And he calls us to contemplate. So maybe he calls us in his image to do what he does. So God contemplates. And you know what the gist of his contemplation is after he's done with creation? It is good. That's what he says. It is good. Wow. And that's what we're always about. Whatever is good. And so there's this harmony. There's this peace with all of creation. All of creation is living in this harmony and peace. And man and women is in the garden, and they're living in harmony and peace. And that peace that is there, that's what is good. And that is lost. Why? Because instead of desiring God and peace and harmony and goodness and love, we become selfish. And Adam eats of a tree, the fruit he wasn't allowed to eat. And in becoming selfish, division now is our way of life, fighting with one another, not getting along and arguing, anger, and those kind of things become our way of life. Adam even has divided against himself. He's ashamed. He determines he's naked, so he hides from God, and he breaks communion with God. and one another. And then what's he do? He doesn't just have shame, but he has blame. He blames his wife. And not only that, but now their sons, Cain and Abel. Cain figures, this world would be better without Abel in it, and he kills him. And that goes on until this very day. Pope Francis said every war we fight is just a reenactment of Cain killing Abel. You cannot have the peace of the garden by war. Jesus on the cross, and we go to the cross because we're Christians and we believe in that. Jesus on the cross declares definitively, never again will violence be fought with violence. Violence will now be fought with peace, with love, with that harmony that the world doesn't know and the peace that passes understanding. And so when Jesus rises from the dead, you remember, he's in the room with his disciples. What's the first words he says to his disciple? Peace. Peace be with you. The peace that was in the garden before all time, but way beyond that. This is something different. I'm not restoring us to the garden. I'm doing a new creation, a whole new creation, altogether new. And so that peace I'm giving you is a messianic peace. It's the peace that the people have looked for ever since they were kicked out of the garden. It's the peace all the prophets dreamed of, longed for, desired, just wept, imagining we want to live in that peace. And then he shows him his hands and his side, and he says to him one more time, peace be with you. That's the peace in our Mass that we'll say to one another. And we're not shaking hands. We're not saying peace, dude, or anything like that. We're saying that peace that once was an even greater peace to you. A peace that is dreamed of only by the prophets. That peace to you. And Jesus tells us in the gospel today, I want you to take that to the world. Really? This world? I can't even bring peace to my own heart and soul. I'm still struggling there. Or to my own marriage. Or to my own church, for goodness sakes. How am I going to bring peace to the whole world? And you know what the Pope said last week? He said, I want everyone to go home tonight, and I want you to just cry out and say, this is possible for every single person. Then he said, no, I want you to do something else. I want you to go home and cry out, I want this with all my heart. Yeah, that's what I desire, and that's who I want to be. And so Jesus says, guess what? We ain't getting there with halfway efforts. We can't get there with halfway efforts. If you start to build a tower and you don't have the resources, you only go halfway in, you're not going to finish the tower and everyone's going to laugh at you. Wow. Does the world laugh at us? Does the world laugh at Catholics? There's 1 billion of us. What if we were all in? What if we did what he did? And you know that word, hate your father and mother, hate your husband or wife, hate your brother and sister? That word does mean hate, and we get hate out of it in the Greek, but it also means, it has a secondary meaning, compared to how we view Jesus, compared to following Jesus, we give no preference whatsoever to our father and mother, our spouse, our children, or even our own life. We would rather die than not follow Jesus. We would rather die than bring violence into our world. We're here to bring that peace, that grace, that mercy, that love, and that's what God calls us to do and to be. And so, never let the world laugh at us. We are called to be all in. Let's be that church. And by the way, while we're that church all in, let's quit gossiping, which is murder. Let's quit divisiveness, which is just the fruit of that brokenness of the garden. Let's bring back that harmony and peace, but in a new way, a new covenant way. And so William Willimon, he was the chaplain of Duke University for over a decade. And he's an interesting writer, too. He says this, in the whole time he was chaplain at Duke University, he got maybe one phone call, maybe two tops, that said something like this: help, my daughter's an alcoholic, or help, my son's in trouble. Never got those calls, hardly at all. But you know what calls he did get? Got over a dozen times he got this call: help, my daughter's become a fanatic, which means she's not going to go to Duke Law School. She wants to work in a Catholic nutritional program helping poor people find enough to eat. She's trying to go out and bring harmony to our world, and she doesn't want to just sell her soul out. Help, my son's become a fanatic. He got that call all the time. We worry that our children are all in. Not only is the world laughing at us, but we want them to laugh at them. And today Jesus says, I want you more than anything to be all in, because it's the only way to live. Once I wasn't even praying. I shouldn't even make myself that holy. I was studying. I was studying theology of the Trinity, and all of a sudden I was in God's presence. It's about 4 in the morning, and I was there till about 8 in the morning, and I had to go to morning prayer, and so I left, and I was just there in the very presence of God. And I can tell you that God I was with for that time is worth more than this world has to offer, times infinity, times everything, times all times. There's nothing in this world that touches the beauty and goodness and peace of being in God. That's our desire. That's our longing. And so this guy who worked for Teach America, I think that's what it was called, something like that, and he went to a prestigious university. I used to know which university it was. It was like University of Michigan or Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania or something like that. And he looked out at the people he was talking to, the students, and he goes, oh my gosh. And he says, I don't know what I'm doing here, because what I'm offering doesn't look like who you are. He said, you have come here to be lawyers, doctors, Fortune 500 businessmen. You guys are going to be so successful in this world, and what I'm offering is a job teaching in South LA in a burnt-out classroom in Watts, teaching biology. I'm offering a classroom in West Virginia to teach kids who are between the ages of 6 and 13 how to read. And I can tell this is not what you came here for. And so I'm going to set these pamphlets on the table. If anyone's interested, you can come and look at them. Otherwise, this meeting is over. And he begins to walk away. And the kids in that auditorium rushed into the aisle, rushed down, and were almost literally fighting over those pamphlets. They wanted to go to these classrooms where 3 teachers, and the guy said this, he said 3 of our teachers were killed in the classroom last year alone. They rushed down to get those jobs that didn't pay anything at all, so they could bring that peace to God's world, so that they could give a difference. They didn't even consider their own lives. They didn't even consider anything else. We're created that way. We're created in God's image. Sure, we're fallen, but something in us wants to respond to Jesus today, who says, unless you do not even prefer your own life, unless you abandon everything and follow me, you can't be my disciple, because we won't get the job done. This is our call today. It's a call to be all in all the time, disciples of Jesus. And what a wonderful call. We feel it just burn in our hearts. And what a wonderful Savior and Lord to follow. What an example He gives us, and how He empowers us with His peace and Holy Spirit. What a wonderful faith we have.